The last thing my father ever said to me was not "I love you." It wasn't "I'm sorry." It wasn't even my name. He was lying in a hospital bed, barely conscious, with the machines making that soft, steady sound that tells you someone is still here, but only just. I was holding his hand when he squeezed my fingers once. Then he whispered 4 words I had spent 37 years waiting to hear. "I'm proud of you, son." He died before I could answer. And for a long time, I hated him for that. Not because he said it too late. Because I finally realized how badly I'd needed to hear it. My father was not a cruel man. That's what makes this story difficult to explain. If he had been abusive, violent, or completely absent, maybe I could have understood why we never had the relationship I wanted. But he was there. He came to my baseball games. He taught me how to change a tire. He showed up at parent-teacher meetings. He worked overtime when money was tight. He fixed the leaking roof himself instead of paying someone because, as he used to say, why pay a man to do something your 2 hands can figure out? He did 1,000 things for me. He just never said the words, "I'm proud of you." Not once. When I was 8, I won a school spelling competition. I remember running home with the little blue ribbon pinned to my shirt. I pushed through the front door and shouted, "Dad, I won!" He looked up from the newspaper. "Good job." Then he folded the paper. "Don't let it go to your head." That was it. When I was 13, I made the varsity baseball team. I was so excited that I barely slept the night before. My father drove me to practice. As I got out of the truck, he said, "Work harder than the other kids. Talent won't carry you." I waited for something else. A smile. A pat on the back. Anything. Nothing came. When I was 17, I got accepted into a university 3 states away. I had expected him to be excited. Instead, he sat at the kitchen table with the acceptance letter in his hands. "You sure you can afford it?" "I got a scholarship." "Scholarships don't pay for everything." "I know." He nodded. "Then don't waste it." I remember walking upstairs afterward and shutting my bedroom door. I sat on my bed and stared at the acceptance letter. I wasn't angry about the money. I was angry because I wanted him to say one simple thing. "I'm proud of you." Instead, I heard myself whisper, "Why is that so hard?" I left for college 2 months later. My father helped me load the car. He checked my oil. He tightened the straps on the boxes in my trunk. He gave me $20. When I hugged him goodbye, his arms went around me for maybe 2 seconds. Then he stepped back. "Call your mother when you get there." Not me. My mother. I drove away with tears in my eyes. And I made myself a promise. I wasn't going to spend my whole life chasing approval from a man who didn't know how to give it. For a while, I kept that promise. College was difficult, but I did well. I graduated near the top of my class. My mother called me crying. My father called later that evening. "How's the job search?" "I've got 3 interviews." "Good." There was a pause. Then he said, "Keep your expenses low." I laughed bitterly after we hung up. It was almost funny. I could win awards, graduate, get promotions, accomplish things I had once thought impossible, and somehow my father always found the practical detail that needed fixing. Eventually, I stopped telling him about my achievements. That was probably my first mistake. I thought I was protecting myself. Really, I was creating distance. At 27, I got married. My father liked my wife immediately. That surprised me. He shook her hand and said, "You're too good for him." Everyone laughed. I didn't. I knew he was joking. At least I think he was. During the wedding reception, my father pulled me aside. "You're responsible for her now." "I know. Marriage isn't like dating." "I know, Dad." "Then you'll be fine." He clapped my shoulder and walked away. I stood there watching him disappear into the crowd. Again, I waited for something that never came. A few years later, my wife and I had our first child. A son. The day he was born, I understood my father differently for the first time. I remember sitting in that hospital room holding my newborn baby. He was tiny. His entire hand could fit around my finger. I looked at his face and felt something so enormous that it frightened me. And I suddenly thought about my father. I wondered whether he'd felt the same thing when he held me. Maybe he had. Maybe he just didn't know how to say it. That thought bothered me. Because it was easier to believe my father didn't care than to believe he cared deeply and simply didn't know how to express it. When he came to visit, he stood beside the hospital bed. He looked at his grandson. Then he looked at me. Good-looking kid. I smiled. Thanks. He nodded. You'll need to save more money now. I laughed. Of course. Then he reached down and touched the baby's forehead. For just a second, his expression changed. It was softer than I'd ever seen it. I almost asked him, "Dad, were you proud of me when I was a kid?" But I couldn't. The question felt too vulnerable. So I swallowed it. Years passed. My career went well. I bought a house. I got promoted. My son started school. My father came over for birthdays and holidays. We developed a strange kind of relationship where we could spend 4 hours together without talking about anything important. He'd ask about the lawn. I'd ask about his truck. He'd complain about the weather. I'd complain about traffic. And somehow that was our version of intimacy. Then, when I was 36, my father called me one Tuesday evening. His voice sounded different. Tired. Can you come by tomorrow? Sure. What's wrong? Nothing. I knew immediately that something was wrong. Dad? I said nothing. He hung up. I drove to his house the next morning. He was sitting at the kitchen table. There was a cup of coffee in front of him. Untouched. He looked older than he had the week before. I'd been having some tests done, he said. I sat across from him. What kind of tests? He looked at the table. Heart. That was the first time I saw fear in my father's face. Not pain. Fear. The doctor eventually explained it to us. His heart wasn't working properly. There were treatments. There were medications. There were possibilities. But nobody could promise us anything. My father listened quietly. On the drive home, he said, "Don't tell your son yet." Why? Because I don't want him worrying. You're his grandfather. I know. He stared out the passenger window. He shouldn't have to think about losing me. I didn't know what to say. So I said nothing. His condition got worse over the next year. There were hospital visits. Medication changes. Appointments. Arguments. He hated being treated like a sick man. One afternoon, I found him trying to move a heavy box in his garage. "Dad, what are you doing?" "I've moved heavier things." "You're not supposed to lift that." He glared at me. "Since when did you become my father?" "Since you started acting like an idiot." He laughed. Actually laughed. It was one of the best moments we'd had in years. Then he said something I'll never forget. "You've gotten mouthy." "Learned from you." He shook his head. "Maybe." For a moment, we just looked at each other. I wanted to say it then. I wanted to tell him everything. That I loved him. That I was angry. That I had spent half my life wondering whether I was good enough. That every achievement had secretly been an attempt to make him look at me differently. But the moment passed. He picked up his coffee. "Help me move this box." So I did. A few months later, he was admitted to the hospital again. This time, it was serious. The doctors told us he probably didn't have much time. My mother cried in the hallway. My son sat beside me, terrified. I tried to be strong for everyone. But when I walked into my father's room, I broke. He looked incredibly small. This was the man who had once carried me on his shoulders. The man who could fix anything. The man who seemed indestructible when I was a child. Now he couldn't sit up without help. I pulled a chair next to his bed. He opened his eyes. Hey. Hey, Dad. You look tired. I laughed through my tears. So do you. He smiled faintly. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "How's your boy?" Scared. He shouldn't be. He knows you're sick. My father looked toward the window. Tell him I'm okay. I nodded. Then he asked, "How's work?" I almost laughed. Seriously? What? That's what you want to talk about? He frowned. What else? I stared at him. Dad, I'm scared. He didn't answer. I don't know what I'm supposed to do when you're gone. His eyes moved toward me. You'll figure it out. That isn't enough. He looked away. I felt anger rising inside me. 37 years of it. All the little moments. All the things I had never said. They suddenly came pouring out. Were you ever proud of me? He went completely still. I almost wished I hadn't asked. But then I continued. Because I spent my whole life wondering. My voice cracked. I graduated. I got married. I built a career. I became a father. I bought a house. I did everything I thought you wanted me to do. He watched me silently. And you never said it. I wiped my face. Not once. My father looked down at his hands. For several seconds, there was only the sound of the machines. Then he said quietly, "I thought you knew." I shook my head. No. I didn't. He closed his eyes. And when he opened them again, they were wet. That was something I'd almost never seen. My father crying. I was raised differently, he said. My father never told me either. I said nothing. He thought praise made boys soft. He took a slow breath. So I learned to show things instead. I looked at him. The baseball games? He nodded. The university? Another nod. The wedding? Yes. The hospital? He smiled. You think I came because I had nothing better to do? I laughed through my tears. He squeezed my hand. I was proud of you every day. That sentence destroyed me. Because I had spent decades waiting for it. And now I couldn't stop hearing all the years I'd spent believing the opposite. He continued. You became a better man than I was. Dad. No. Let me finish. His voice was weak. You're a good husband. You're a good father. You take care of people. You show up. He paused. That's all I ever wanted for you. I couldn't speak. Then he squeezed my hand again. I'm proud of you, son. 4 words. 4 words I'd wanted since I was 8 years old. And somehow, hearing them at 37 hurt more than never hearing them at all. Because suddenly I understood. My father had been saying it his entire life. He just hadn't been using words. He said it every time he drove me to practice. Every time he checked my tires before a long trip. Every time he worried about whether I could afford college. Every time he came to my son's birthday. Every time he sat beside me in that hospital room. His language had been responsibility. Mine had always been words. And somewhere between the two, we'd spent decades misunderstanding each other. He died the following morning. I was holding his hand. My mother was beside me. My son was at home with my wife. When his breathing became shallow, I leaned forward. I heard you, Dad. His eyes opened slightly. I heard you. He squeezed my hand. Then he was gone. For weeks afterward, I couldn't bring myself to clean out his house. Eventually, I started with the garage. I found old tools, receipts, a broken radio, a box of photographs. And beneath some old newspapers, I found a small envelope with my name on it. My hands started shaking. Inside was a photograph. It was from my university graduation. I was standing outside the building wearing my cap and gown. I didn't remember anyone taking the picture. On the back, in my father's handwriting, were 6 words. My son. Couldn't be prouder. I sat on the garage floor and cried. Not because I had discovered something new, but because I finally understood something I'd spent my entire life missing. My father had never been good at saying what he felt. But that didn't mean he hadn't felt it. And maybe that's the lesson I needed most. Because after he died, I went home and found my own son sitting at the kitchen table doing his homework. He looked up. Dad? Yeah? Can I show you something? He turned his notebook toward me. He'd drawn a picture of our family. It was terrible. The proportions were completely wrong. My head was enormous. His mother had 3 arms. He had somehow drawn our dog floating above the house. I laughed. Then I looked at him. And I realized I had a choice. I could repeat my father's silence. Or I could break the pattern. I pulled him into a hug. I love you. He laughed. Dad, you're crushing me. I let go. Then I looked him straight in the eyes. And I'm proud of you. He smiled. Even though my drawing is bad? Especially because your drawing is bad. He laughed. And I laughed with him. That night, after he went upstairs, I sat alone in the living room. I thought about my father. For years, I had wondered whether he had been proud of me. Now I knew. He had been. He just didn't understand how desperately I needed to hear it. So if you're lucky enough to still have your father, your mother, your brother, your sister, your child, don't assume they know. Say it. Say the thing that feels obvious. Say I love you. Say I'm proud of you. Say it while they're sitting across from you. Say it while they can still answer. Because sometimes 4 simple words can take 37 years to finally arrive. And sometimes, by the time they do, the person you've been waiting to hear them from is already gone.